Hey guys, long time no chat. So, it's been a little while, and I know in my last video I said I was going to film a haul, but I've really struggled with uploading for, I'm pretty sure, the reason, but I've been struggling to upload here. I'm pretty sure the reason being the title of this video. And I thought it would be interesting to do a self-diagnosis, or not self-diagnosed, but like pre-screening for ADHD with you. And I explain these symptoms for me, and talk a little bit about my experience and why I am planning to get evaluated or screened for ADHD. And that's that. So if you're interested in what ADHD looks like in me and how it could potentially look like in you, then stick around in this video and let's kind of get into it. So I'm using the psycom.net psycom.net ADHD test. This is not in the place of a proper diagnosis, but I do think it is really important to check out screenings like this to research about things that you feel you might have. I think a lot of people are anti-self-diagnosis. I'm very pro self-diagnosis because, especially as a woman of color, we are often kind of shirked and forgotten in the medical field. And when it comes to ADHD in particular, a lot of the research done around it is around boys, young boys, and the stereotype of it is a very fidgety, very hyperactive child. And I would say I was pretty energetic as a kid, but I also would say that I definitely don't present the way someone with ADHD you would think does present. So it says it right here. Assessment can be a valuable first step towards getting treatment. All too often people stop short of seeking help out of fear their concerns aren't legitimate or severe enough to warrant professional intervention. And I think that's true for a lot of people, especially in, the Hispanic community. And I think it's changing now with more education. This is not a true diagnosis, but I do think it's an important step to potentially finding answers to some things you struggle with. So let's get into it. The first question says, do you tend to avoid or delay getting started on a new important task? So this is, by the way, the way that you do this is on a scale. So it's never, rarely, sometimes, often, very often. I feel like I'm somewhere between sometimes to very often. So I'm gonna go with often. I find that if I know a task is very large, like filming a video that requires a lot of different shots, like starting a project that requires a lot of little steps, I really struggle with that. I find I get really seized up with knowing all of the things I have to do and not knowing what order to do them in, or, I want to write a novel. I've always wanted to write a book, and I have started so many novels, so many stories, and I find about a quarter of the way through, I lose all momentum, motivation to be able to push myself through and complete the task. And that's not always the case. I know a lot of people with ADHD hyperfocus. I've yet to get that with writing. And so I have so many ideas lined up for writing a story that I just don't get to because I get overwhelmed knowing how much I have to write to fill in the story. So there's that. Okay, next. Do you find that the majority of your tasks, work, school, assignments, etc. are boring or repetitive, making them difficult to complete? Absolutely. I'm gonna say very often. I really struggle with doing paperwork, with doing grading. I really struggle with making PowerPoints here in Korea. And the funny thing is that I have been way less anxious here in Korea. Fun fact, I have been diagnosed with general anxiety, but I really struggled back home as a teacher, completing a lot of the administrative work, and A, there's not enough time for the amount of stuff that they send us, but B, I found that I didn't have enough time. I felt as though I had 5 million mini jobs I had to do, and that is true, but I think I particularly really struggle with prioritizing them. And completing them in a timely manner because I find them utterly tedious and I get so distracted. I start looking up other things that are way more interesting, which is not what I want to do, but I end up doing. And I think that's the key differentiation here. Like, I want to be able to do these tasks and find I am unable to do these tasks. So that's very often. Next, do you find yourself making careless mistakes when engaging in something you feel is boring, repetitive, or difficult? The amount of times growing up in which a teacher would tell me to go back and check my work, and that I will find on projects, papers, like really important things, careless mistakes because I kind of just am in a rush to finish, is like too many to count. I can't seem to make my brain go, let's take it slow, let's triple check. I really struggle with double checking my work, and so I have this problem very often, and it's not something I'm proud of. Next, how often do you feel restless or fidgety? So I don't know if this counts, but I crack my hands and feet a lot. When it's time for bed, I find I have to like crack my bones a bunch. Sorry if you hate that sound, but that is just how I am. So I'm gonna say sometimes, because I also just shake my leg a lot, but I thought that was just an anxiety coffee thing. So I'm gonna say sometimes, because I don't really know where I fall. Do you regularly fail to remember important appointments or obligations? I find I don't forget important like things, like important doctor's notes, and I'm very timely when it comes to appointments. I will always show up early, so I feel like I don't really struggle with important dates, but I really struggle to remember if my schedule's thrown off or altered in any way. I will forget if I don't write it down. I find I struggle to remember like the whole task sometimes. So I'm gonna say sometimes for that one too. Do you have difficulty unwinding or feel often on the go? I really struggle with that, and again, I thought that was a symptom of like I grew up in a kind of rough family environment, so I thought it was because of like that trauma that I just don't know how to relax. Anyway, my mom struggles with unwinding as well, and I always chalked it up as like we just have so much to do, but I find that it's extremely troublesome because even when I'm on vacation and that's like designated time to relax, I get really worked up and anxious because I feel like I should be doing something, and I struggle to turn off a lot. Do you have difficulty concentrating on people when they're speaking to you? All the freaking time. I really, in school, I find it's 50-50. If it's a subject matter I have zero interest in, I zoned out. Like, I want to pay attention, but I can't. But in normal day-to-day conversations, I struggle when people tell long stories, because they tell me something, my brain starts thinking of an offshoot of that, and next thing I know, I'm like in my own land, far, far away, and I feel awful because I want to hear what you're talking about, but I've either thought up a reply that I don't want to forget, or I am just thinking about something you said 5 minutes ago, and I struggle. So that is a often, if not very often. But I will say this, if you do have something really important to tell me, I am really good about listening to that. But like, if you're just telling me a story, and I always thought that I just was a really poor listener, and that it meant like I was narcissistic, and just, I was told that like as a kid. I remember my best friend growing up was like, Anna, we think you talk about yourself way too much, and that has never ever been forgotten. So there's that. Next, do you frequently misplace things? All the time. My mother would say if my head was not attached to my body, I would lose it. So that's a very often. There was a point in time where I was really good about it, but here's the thing about me. I used to ascribe to the idea that I was type B because I'm very messy, but then my anxiety started to correct a lot of my tendencies to be forgetful and disorganized, but it corrected it to the point where I was constantly anxious and constantly on edge. So I feel like even though my brain made a coping mechanism by making me anxious about things so I wouldn't forget, it overcorrected it to the point where now I think my brain so doesn't want to be anxious that I'm back to how I was. And I also was talking to my partner about this, in where I told him I think also being in a safe environment has curbed my anxiety, but it's also led to me being more okay with being forgetful and losing things and stuff, which is not good. But yeah, I think how I exhibit this depends on how safe I feel. I don't know if that makes sense. Okay, next. Are you typically distracted or find it hard to focus when there is activity or noise around you? Yes, I find that but it depends on the noise. I cannot listen to music with lyrics in it when completing tasks. I cannot complete tasks when people are talking to me. If you want to talk to me and the TV's going, I have to pause the TV to listen to you because my brain gets very overwhelmed with the two voices going. The same thing happens when someone's talking behind me and you're talking to me. I will often start not knowing who to listen to. And it makes it really hard for me to be in groups because I let the groups kind of talk over me, and then I kind of just zone out, and it makes me feel like alone because I don't know how to engage with the group. So yeah, so I find it really hard. So I'm putting often for that one. Do you find yourself avoiding situations like waiting your turn in line when waiting is expected and appropriate? I'm not that bad with waiting online. In fact, I find it a pet peeve when people are very impatient, like to the point where they're rude about being in line. But I am a very impatient person, and it depends on who you are and what's going on to like the varying degrees of my patience. I'm very patient with small children and anyone who maybe has a disability, things that, you know, generally should evoke empathy, sympathy. But I find that I can be quite impatient when I want something done for me, like if I ask Matt to, can you do this for me? And if it's not done when I like asked for it and he's like gonna wait 5 minutes, I just wanted to get it done. And it's not a good thing. It's not good. I don't like that about myself, but I am impatient with that. But I'm gonna say for this, I'm gonna say sometimes, because it wasn't the exact situation. But anyway, that's the end of those questions. Completed that, and I will tell you, it says I have a strong, here I'm gonna turn it around. You have a strong indication of ADD, ADHD, but like it says, this quiz is no substitute for a proper diagnosis, and you should see a healthcare professional. Am I shocked? No. I've been researching ADHD for quite some time, especially ADHD in women. I'll link down below some videos and articles that I've read on the matter. I'm like pretty sure I have it, and I find that a lot of times people like me are seen as because I'm very ambitious, and I, depending on what it is, I have really good coping mechanisms to ensure that I complete tasks, aka lean into my anxiety to complete things. I don't look like someone who has ADHD, but yeah, there are just so many other symptoms that I have, and I'm so thankful to have the ability to afford to get evaluated, because it's another thing. It's expensive. It's so expensive to get tested, and if you don't have it, then I'm not gonna say it's not worth it, but it's a barrier. It's a barrier. So I'm so grateful to be able to do this and to get screened soon, hopefully. But I just wanted to share this to give you a little bit of insight on what's been going on with me and why I really have been struggling with a proper upload schedule, and have always struggled with a proper upload schedule if you look at my whole history here on YouTube. And there's the drumming, so I'm gonna have to cut this here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so sorry if I have disappointed you guys in any way by not being a good YouTuber, but ultimately my job is teaching and I do this for fun. But I want to document and share my own struggles with this, and I wanted to give you guys this little resource to see if maybe you're struggling with this. Something you can do to start researching. So anyway, thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope this was helpful. I hope you enjoyed this. I'll see you guys in the next one, hopefully soon. Bye.